Hello, AP US Government and Politics. Welcome to virtual review session number 3. Can you believe it? Number 3. As always, these review sessions are recorded for your benefit later on. I'm Mr. Bognot. Mr. Billington's here with us. Say hi.
Hello.
Awesome. And we are going to go over concept analysis, and we're going to review content from Unit 1. Today is Friday, May 1st, 2020. And let's get on to the content. All right, so Friday, May 1st, as I've said, we are going to take a look at concept analysis, which is question 2 on your AP exam that you'll be taking in 10 days. Hey, everybody, happy May Day. May Day, May Day, 10 days. 12 to 1 p.m. today. We might go over, but it'll be because we're going specifically into the content. And then we'll go over some questions you may have. So if you have not taken a look at virtual review session number 1 and 2, or if you did not attend, then please take a look at those videos. They are on YouTube in their entirety. Alrighty. So let's take a look again as a reminder what the exam will look like. You're going to have 2 FRQs, free response questions. Question 1 will be an argument essay. And I did the quotes because if you didn't look at the previous video, you won't understand what I'm trying to say. So take a look at the previous video if you don't know why I'm doing that. Argument essay. It's 60% of your score, and it's about anything related to units 1 through 3. Today we're focusing on question 2, which is concept analysis. And as you can see, you'll have 15 minutes for question 2. So you can already start to tell that it's probably the easier question to answer, but it's weighted a lot lower than question 1. And it essentially just presents you a scenario, and it tests to see if you can apply your government skills into that scenario. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So I want everybody now, this is not optional, everybody needs to do it. I need you all to go to this fabulous link. No, we're already messing up. There we go. This fabulous link right here, tinyurl.com/bognotpractice1. I'm sorry, Mr. Billington, I didn't include you because I didn't think you'd make it today.
Yeah.
But you're here and we are all happy. Or are we?
You want to just make it like clickable or something?
Huh?
Like post it on Google Classroom real quick. Make it easier.
I could post it in the chat. They can click it from there.
That too. That would work.
So go ahead and post it, Billy's, if you can. Billy's at nv.ccsd.net. Okay, so tinyurl.com/bognotpractice1. Or if you are on a mobile device like Diego Perez, what you can also do is write it on a piece of paper. So take out a sheet of paper and writing utensil. I always hated when teachers said writing utensil. Why can't you just say a pen or pencil? Like, what other utensil can it be?
Because writing utensil is like both of them.
It is. But I'm just going to say pen and pencil.
And a mechanical pencil.
Look, writing utensil, 5 syllables, pen or pencil is 4 syllables. So why not just say pen or pencil? I don't get it. I don't get it.
Pen or pencil is 3 words.
I don't get it.
Writing
or crayon. Crayon. I hate it when people also say crayon. Take out your crayons. It's crayon.
It's like Nevada.
Well, it is technically Nevada, but now people are like, no, it's Nevada. It's Nevada.
It's not Nevada.
Nevada means, does anybody know? Anybody know what it means? It means, someone in chat? The literal translation?
I honestly don't know.
Nevada means home. You're funny.
I honestly thought you were meaning that too. I was like,
credit for you. No, Nevada means snow-capped. It's a Spanish word.
Nevada.
Snow-capped. Okay, we're going to give you about 30 more seconds to load up that tiny URL. Do not start yet. I'm trusting your... We're going to base it off an honor system here because I want you to take this in 15 minutes. We're going to mimic how it will look like on the AP exam, 15 minutes.
As realistic as possible.
So don't start thinking about tomorrow. Wow, I'm really silly today. All right, so tinyurl.com/bognotpractice1. Okay. So this is what should be on your screen right now. We're going to read it together, and I will start the timer. Do not start. Do not start.
Yeah,
So,
you're
Billy,
gonna
you want to read that?
You're zooming a little bit. There's no way I'm reading that.
That's because Mr. Billington's so old, older than me. Oh,
You got
man.
it like zoomed out completely.
Mr. Billington's so old.
Hmm.
All right.
All right,
Here we go.
that's good. All right, so since 2008, the Alliance Defending Freedom, a conservative Christian interest group, has promoted an annual event known as Pulpit Freedom Sunday. On this occasion, pastors are encouraged to challenge a provision of the tax law known as the Johnson Amendment, which prohibits political activity by certain nonprofit organizations, including religious organizations. While the Johnson Amendment does not restrict religious leaders from speaking out regarding social issues, it does prohibit them from contributing money to political campaigns or speaking out in favor or against candidates running for political office. On Pulpit Freedom Sunday, as an act of civil disobedience, pastors and religious leaders preach openly about moral qualifications of candidates seeking office. After reading this scenario, please respond to A, B, and C below.
All right. So I'd want to start off. For the sake of simplicity, I separated A, B, and C. But again, as we've advised you, and if you were at the CCSD review session, they advised you to not label them A, B, and C, because let's just say that part of your answer for A ended up in B, but it's labeled B. Then they can't give you the points. But if you don't have A, B, and C, they could be like, oh, what he wrote in part B technically can be counted for A, so let's give him the point. So that is what it's asking you to do. A couple of tips. Do not start. All right. So the first thing is, here we go. You have the scenario that you do not know about, that we did not cover in class. That's the whole point of this concept analysis question. It gives you a whole new scenario. You've never heard about any of these things potentially. You've never heard about the Johnson Amendment. You've never heard about Pulpit Freedom Sunday, right? But it's asking you, when we're going to take a look at these three questions, can you apply what you've learned in government to this situation? So all of you might be freaking out. All of you probably hit end right now because you're like, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. Hashtag done. Or some of you might be like Slayton. You might be like, I got this. I got this. And doing that stupid hand gesture. But here we go. Let's take a look at the questions. Describe an action Congress could take to address the concerns of the interest group in the scenario. In the context of the scenario, explain how partisan divisions could prevent the action described in Part A. And then explain why the Alliance Defending Freedom might argue that their constitutional rights are threatened by the Johnson Amendment. So here we go. Describe an action. Describe an action Congress could take to address the concerns of the interest group. Okay. Describe and Congress are the key words. In the context of the scenario, which is right over here, explain how party divisions, remember, partisan just means party. Party divisions could prevent the action described in Part A. So whatever you wrote for Part A, explain why it might not work in Part B. And then C, explain why the Alliance Defending Freedom might argue that their constitutional rights are threatened by the Johnson Amendment. All right. And the Johnson Amendment isn't one of the first 27 amendments we've talked about. It's an amendment to a tax law. It's a change to a tax law known as a Johnson Amendment. And that just means that, again, in layman's terms, if you're a religious organization, you can't verbally support, you can't publicly support what your organization supports. Go ahead, Billy's.
Or financially.
Or financially, correct. Because they're nonprofit organizations, and that's the tax law. They shouldn't have an advantage, since they have a major following, to tell the people who they support and to try and, convince them to support that same candidate. But these groups anyway break the law and say, hey, we're going to have Pulpit Freedom Sunday. And it's because we have, and that's when you try and see their perspective. So I'm going to stop talking there. Billington, do you have anything to add before I start? Did he leave? I think he left. All right. So you have 3 questions to ask or to answer. You have 15 minutes. Okay. And then we'll take a look at some sample responses from College Board. Then we'll take a look at your actual responses. So you have 15 minutes. I will put a timer up right now. You may begin. I will put the question back up for those doing it on paper. If I can find it. There we go. Try it again, Slayton. I just removed the requirement to be logged in. So if you're all watching this not live, go ahead and just fast forward 13 minutes from this point because I'm not editing. I've been doing so much for y'all, doing these review sessions. Billions has been doing so much. Just skip 13 minutes past this point. Thank you. Or will you miss any surprises within the 13 minutes? So let's see if you actually wait or actually skip. I'm going to mute my mic now, and I'm going to mute my screen because I want to enjoy my Taco Bell. Excuse me. Boom! You have 5 minutes. Mr. Dyer in the house. Mr. Dyer will give you some time to talk in about 3 minutes. They're timed right now. Thanks for joining.
She keeps hitting the microphone with her foot. But this is baby Charlotte that was born at the end of spring break. She says hello. I was just checking in to say hi to everybody, see how you guys are doing, and say congratulations for making it this far. You guys only have one more little step to go, and you guys graduate. And although I was only there for one semester, I am proud of all of you. Even if I didn't teach you, I've met a lot of you. So keep going, keep pushing. Graduation is literally around the corner. And you will be there before you know it. And then next thing you know, you'll be an adult just like us. So just wanted to say hi. Baby Charlotte wanted to say hi. I have to let her go eat now because she's hungry.
Aww. Don't be an adult, everyone. Stay young. Oh, so cute. I gotta be Charlotte one day.
But it was good to say hi to you guys. I miss you guys. I'll be keeping in touch with you guys, and you guys continue to study, have fun, and take it serious because it is something that can help you out and value. See you guys later.
Take care, Dyer. I will give you all a 1 minute extension. Nine, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. Happy New Year! 1 more minute, y'all. Submit, submit, submit. I have 3 responses. There should be like 10. So if there's literally only 2 responses, I'm going to kick everyone out, and the people who submitted responses will get to stay. So I'll give you about a minute to submit, and we'll go from there.
Well, that's rude.
No. It's actually pretty nice.
Oh, I don't have access to the thing. You didn't share with me.
Let me see.
You shared it with me to fill it out.
Please lock me away and don't allow the day. Oh, there we go. Three responses, y'all. Still waiting. You have 30 seconds. Just upload whatever you have. Upload whatever you have. This is your time to fail. Let's go. More responses. I'll give you 30 more seconds. I am so nice. Okay, so here is the next part, because we do want some student involvement. What I want you to do is a couple of you unmute your mic and reveal your faces and talk about how you felt doing this practice concept analysis number 2, question 2, within 15 minutes. So unmute your mic and go ahead and speak.
It wasn't that bad.
Nice.
I don't have cameras, so this is going to be kind of weird. It wasn't bad. It was definitely kind of weird trying to piece the puzzle together about how like the Johnson Amendment is sort of overlapping with, you know, your First Amendment, your freedom of, you know, religion, assembly, you know, press and speech and all that. And it was also kind of hard to like connect that. Obviously, it's 2008. So 2008 was the year that Obama was president, and that was when the House was under complete control by the Democrats, and the Senate was in control by the Republicans. And in order to propose a bill that would, you know, revise said tax law, it would have to be from the House, and the House obviously wouldn't like do anything about that sort of stuff. Like they're not big on religion unless if it's like religion as a whole, not so much of Christianity. And this is more of a Christian, you know,
Actually,
problem.
it doesn't say that this takes place in 2008. It says since 2008, as in that was the established year.
Yeah, so good points, you two, because you're outlining, or you're highlighting, I should say, the point of you shouldn't be, you know, it's good to read the prompt, but take the prompt for what it is.
Yeah,
so I
but
like
even
how Slayton, so I like how Slayton like put together, 2008, this probably was under Obama, blah blah, but that is, you only have 15 minutes to answer this question. College Board is not asking for you to be so detailed to the point where you have to think about these things. All of the information about the prompt is there, and just use what's in the prompt.
Yeah, just from hearing other teachers, even on like the Facebook group and everything, a lot of the teachers are worried that you guys won't have enough time to answer all of this completely, just because it's such a short amount of time to read the whole scenario and understand it, and then come up with a plan of action to actually answer these questions. So I would just say, try not to go too much into deepness of it. Just read it, understand it, and then start writing as much as you can.
Again, because remember, College Board knows that you only have 15 minutes. And so this question might be too long. They might have a shorter version for question number 2, which will work in your favor because now you're over prepared. The one thing that won't change, though, is there'll be 3 questions. There'll be 3 questions, A, B, and C. And you have an opportunity to earn 3 points. So let's just stop talking. Unless somebody else wants to chime in, I'll give you another 30 seconds if you want to chime in. How do you think you did? Anyone from Billington's class? Because Bognut representing.
No, they're not.
Okay, so I think the question size seemed fine, personally. The 15 minutes was okay, and the question was decent. But honestly, I realized I wasn't sure what I was doing when thinking about what Congress could do because of those I didn't think about the 2008 thing, but I was thinking about how this is something that's civil disobedience, and in some cases, like they'll accept it, like it's something that happens. But if Congress were to do something about it, I feel like it would be pretty much just limiting First Amendment rights. But yeah, it was something. If this is over preparing, this is fine.
Perfect, perfect. And we'll take it. We'll leave it at that. So let's take a look at some of your responses. I intentionally designed it so you won't see who wrote it. And again, only 5 of you submitted. This is your time to fail. This is your time for these responses to be scrutinized so that you won't make these same mistakes later on. So go ahead and mute your mics. Let's go over some of these responses and we'll go from there. But first, before we do, we have to take a look at the rubric. So here's the rubric. All righty, here's the rubric. So, Billy, do you want to go over that?
Hold on, I'm trying to pull it up.
It's on the screen too.
Oh, it's on screen. Right, so for part A is 1 point, part B is 1 point, part C is 1 point. So they're all worth the same amount of points. So that's super important to remember, just because of the fact that usually it's based on increasing difficulty. Like part A is usually the easiest way because all you have to do is really like identify and kind of describe what you think could happen. And then B is kind of explaining, and then C is also, again, explaining. So just remember that all 3 parts are the same amount of points. There is no difference in these rubrics. So for part A, you get 1 point is earned for describing an action Congress could take to address the concerns of interest groups in this scenario. Congress could actually pass a law which would reverse the Johnson Amendment. So again, that prohibition kind of idea of where they had an amendment and then they can take that amendment away. That is an option. Congress could also pass a law to allow religious organizations to participate more directly in politics. So there is the only law that's kind of basically stopping them from doing it is that Johnson Amendment. So they could create a law that could change it completely around.
Okay, and then I'm going to interrupt here. So for part A, here's when you won't get a point. Like Billy said, Mr. Billington, I call him Billy's because that's his email, so there we go. But Mr. Billington said that for part A, it is probably the easiest question to answer because it's asking you simply to describe an action Congress could take to address the concerns of the interest group. So the first thing to think about is what is the verb? And it's describe. And then what is it wanting you to describe? It's Congress. So let's say, oh man, this whole prompt, oh, I'm so intimidated. Don't be intimidated. What's one thing Congress can do? What's the function of Congress, right? Congress, simply put, going back to 7th grade US history, writes bills, passes laws. So what's one thing that Congress could do in this situation, this new situation that you've never talked about before? Remember, concept analysis, applying your skills onto new scenarios. So what's one thing that they could do in this specific scenario? Congress could pass a law. But would that get you the point? Would that get you the point if you just said Congress could pass a law? That would not get you the point. That would not get you the point because take a look at the rubric. It says 1 point is earned for describing an action Congress could take to address the concerns of the interest group in the scenario. So here's the thing. Write this in your notes. Take note of this somewhere. I've heard this from many, many different people. You need to somehow tie it to the scenario. Even though Congress could pass a law is technically correct, you need to incorporate the scenario in your response. Incorporate the scenario in your response. So in this case, Congress could pass a law that would reverse the Johnson Amendment. Bingo, you got the point. Congress could pass a law to allow religious organizations to participate more directly in politics. Bingo, you got the point. Remember to include the scenario. Again, include the scenario. So, Billy's, how do you want to do this? You want to go through the entire rubric, or should we take a look at some Part A responses?
Let's look at some Part A. Let's break it down.
Okay. All right. So let's take a look at this first one.
Just click on the go up. You can change it to the individual elections. So that way you just enter all the...
Oh, there we go. Okay, perfect. And I'll zoom in here.
Or no, just go to the question. Go up, press question.
Oh, right there?
Yeah, now you know all just listed.
Perfect. So why don't you go over the first one?
Okay, so Congress could pass a law that would, oh, and again, the way that Google formats these, it's basically just whoever wrote the most is up top. It doesn't mean that they got the most points or anything like that. It's just so everybody knows. Congress could pass a law that would help or support organizations that have to do with religion or faith to be allowed to support candidates or be more involved in politics that support their beliefs or causes. They can make sure that the Johnson Amendment is being obeyed as long as religious members don't give away money to candidates, but could still allow them to support political leaders or candidates they believe in. You want me to go over what did they make it?
Sure.
Yeah, so there's, I think for almost positively that you would probably get the point here. You kind of blur it a little bit though, in that you kind of maybe say too much in the sense. But
I agree.
Overall, I think that's a point.
So whoever wrote that is a good response. You're very detailed. If anything, this could probably be considered you writing about 2 points. And if you want to, go ahead and do that. But remember, you are on a time crunch. So sometimes, short, sweet, to the point, less is more. Remember that, less is more. College Board doesn't need you to elaborate so much to the point where you're writing like 10 sentences. Okay. And we don't want to make it hard on you. We want to emphasize that sometimes less is more as long as you're following the rubric. And the rubric in this case, looking back, you can earn a point for describing an action Congress could take. So did you address an action Congress could take? Yes, you did. Congress could pass a law. There we go. Next, I'll read this one. Congress could place restrictions on organizations such as the Alliance Defending Freedom to sway the opinion of their followers under the name of the organization. An act could be passed to limit organizations' specific actions. Okay, so Billy's, what do you think so far before I give you my thoughts?
So I guess it's kind of, I don't think you go into enough detail quite. I think it go either way. It depends on the reader kind of, because you're just saying Congress could place restrictions. I don't know if that's a good enough description exactly of what they could do, because that's kind of what they already have done with the Johnson Amendment, because the Johnson Amendment is restricting that particular thing. The interest group is the Alliance Defending Freedom. So they're not really restricting that per se. They're just the interest group there to kind of help these Congress people write laws and write amendments that will benefit either their constituents or people that have the same opinion as that interest group. So I think it could go either way on that one.
Yeah, that one is right over here. I would first take a look at the question. Let's take a look at the question again. The question is, describe an action Congress could take to address the concerns of the interest group in the scenario, right? So you said, for your response, Congress could place restrictions on organizations, but how can they place those restrictions? How could they place those restrictions? On your second sentence, it said an act could be passed, but you didn't specify who. So again, sometimes less is more. Make sure you are clear and concise. So I would say something along the lines of, if you were to put something along the lines of Congress could write a bill placing restrictions on organizations such as the Alliance Defending Freedom to sway the opinion of their followers under the name of their organization. That could go either way, but sometimes less is more. You could possibly just say Congress could place restrictions on organizations and why. So this part here, such as that specifically, is it can go either way depending on the reader, but what can Congress do specifically? Make sure you keep that in mind. And how can you tie it into the scenario? Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Let us know if you have any questions. All right, Billy's next one.
Is that the one that's the next one, the top one there?
Yeah.
All right. Congress could draft a bill to change specific aspects of the Johnson Amendment. If addressing specifically the Pulpit Freedom Sunday, they could draft a bill that allows specific non-money related political activities. Yeah, no, I think that's perfect, actually. Very simple, directly to the point, and doesn't do a lot of fluff on that. So it's what gets the point for sure for me.
Definitely. It's very similar to the provided College Board responses. Again, short, sweet, to the point. And they're not looking for grammatical issues. So even though you put daft, we're not talking about Daft Punk here. They won't dock you points for that. All right, next one. The House may start a bill revising the tax code to allow churches and religious organizations to speak out, but may not be able to financially contribute. Could revise. This one elaborate a little more. It's kind of like vague, but may not be financially contribute. So they could put the House may start a bill revising the tax code to allow churches and religious organizations to speak out. That also includes not being able to financially contribute. Again, just make it clear and concise. Don't make it vague. The other thing too is you put the House. And again, sometimes responses are subjective. I would just generalize and put Congress, because now you're limiting it to just the House.
Well, see, I'm actually the opposite of that. I think they're actually like slightly kind of sneakily showing that they know that the House has to start with every money bill.
That is true. That is true. Power of the purse. So good. Yeah, actually, yeah, you got me there. I think you're great when you say that. Yes, but if you put the Senate may start a bill, then that would be completely wrong. So I would just put Congress or the House, since you know that you sneakily put that you knew that all bills relating to money must start at the House. All right, and then the last one, Billy's.
Congress could pass a bill to attempt to amend the Constitution and remove the Johnson Amendment. That is probably the most simple answer, but I believe also gets a point.
So overall, all of you would most likely get the point, despite all the suggestions we made to the longer responses. And again, we're only critiquing you on the length because remember, you only have 15 minutes. I don't want you thinking, Billy's doesn't want you thinking that you need to write an elaborate response when sometimes it could just be short, sweet, to the point and say Congress could pass a bill to attempt to amend the Constitution and remove the Johnson Amendment. There we go. So go ahead and let's take a look at how you can earn the second point for B. Billy's, go ahead.
So for part B, 1 point is earned for explaining in the context of the scenario how partisan divisions could prevent the action described in part A. So they kind of give two different kinds of answers. Partisan divisions make it more difficult to pass a law because parties adhere to different ideological points of view. Or you could possibly put something along the lines of, if Congress and the president are from different political parties, the president might threaten a veto to veto the legislation.
Yeah, short, sweet, to the point. Again, so that scenario may have intimidated you, but this is stuff we definitely covered in class, right? This is simply checks and balances right here. So part two is essentially asking you in the context of what you wrote in part A, right? Now has to tie into part A, what you wrote about part A. So part B ties hand in hand with part A. So since part A was generally Congress could pass a law, now part B is asking, so how could party divisions, let's say if the House is Democrat, the Senate's Republican, how could this prevent the action from successfully happening, passing a law? Well, checks and balances. If Congress and the president are from different political parties, the president might threaten to veto the legislation. Boom, there you go. Or partisan divisions make it more difficult to pass a law because parties adhere to different ideological points of view. Boom, there you go. You're talking about ideology. So let's take a look at some of your responses real quick.
This also kind of shows, just how important that whole diagram of checks and balances is, because it literally shows you the whole unit that they're kind of expecting you guys to know with the interactions too. So especially on the test, I would have some type of form of all the different checks and balances up on your screen, because I'm 100% sure it's going to pop up on the test in some way, shape, or form. So I would just have that up ready to go so you remember all the different kinds of ways that they interact with each other.
Perfect. So we're going to start from the bottom to the top for question B. I'll start. Party divisions could argue that the bill must be in favor for all different parties or more than the simple majority of the states won't approve. This would be no. It would not get a point. Billy's?
Yeah, I mean, I see where they're going. It's just not there yet as far as getting the full point. You can see that they understand that what the party's divisions want, but then you just got to like skip all the way to the done, and you don't quite do that on that response. So that's why I don't think it gets to the point quite away.
Now, again, you have to watch your wording, because you put party divisions could argue that the bill must be in favor for all different parties or more than the simple majority of states want to approve. This part is where you'd lose the point, because the states don't have any involvement in the lawmaking progress at the federal level. But if you had changed this to the majority of congressmen, then that would potentially get you the point. So again, just watch what you're writing. This would definitely not get you the point because of this part alone. This part highlighted here, party divisions could argue that the bill must be in favor for all different parties to agree upon. Hey, you're heading in the right direction. All right, Billy's next one right here.
Party divisions threaten the measures taken by Congress primarily because of the differences in belief parties, that some may promote different views on the same subject. Again, I think we're getting into that like almost there, but not quite exactly addressing the question, because it's asking how can party divisions like cause problems for your A scenario. And so I think you're absolutely right with saying like party divisions threaten the measures taken by Congress primarily because of the differences that they have. That's a perfect answer. But then you have to say, well, how is it going to cause a problem, essentially, instead of just saying, oh, it'll cause problems for Congress. That would be the change I would make.
And again, everything's subjective, because I think this would have a point, because it's very similar to this one right here. So partisan divisions make it more difficult to pass a law because parties adhere to different political ideologies, and it's kind of similar what this person wrote. So again, Billington said you're getting there. I think it's getting there, but again, that's what the readers do. They're at a table and they discuss, and the majority of the people who agree that this earns a point gets the point, and if you're in the minority, then you don't. So again, it's important to be as clear as possible, be clear and concise. All right. This one, partisan divisions could bring up issues to their congressmen that they have about the potential bill and lobby to get parts of it changed or get it completely thrown out. Billington, you want to critique?
You go first. You're the one that read it. Your mic is muted.
I'm just okay. Let's take a look. So partisan divisions could bring up. So I think you may have misunderstood what this word meant. Okay, partisan divisions mean what divides parties, not people. So I think you meant people could bring up issues to their congressmen, or constituents could bring up issues to their congressmen that they have about a potential bill and lobby to get parts of it changed or get it completely thrown out.
This game.
Huh?
You can also view it maybe on the interest group side. I think that's might be where they're coming from as well. Like the interest group has a problem with the bill that they are trying to pass. So you could have probably said that as well. But yeah, I think the key is the vocab. So yeah, I would definitely say that would have to change.
And I would lean towards this not getting the point, because is it addressing what could happen? Like the question is asking how partisan divisions could prevent the action from happening. Is this explaining how this how Part A could be prevented? Like, is this explaining how that action? Let me rephrase it. Doesn't make sense. So is Part B tying into Part A? Is Part B bringing up the problems that may occur to successfully get this this bill passed? I don't know if that makes sense.
I think it is.
It is? Does it?
Yeah.
All right.
They're saying like, that they have a bill that has to be passed about this scenario of donating money to political candidates. But then if they wanted to, I'm looking at it as the interest groups, because that's what the answer I think would fit the best in the scenario. But they could possibly change that bill to the point where partisan divisions might not accept that bill anymore.
Got it. And then the other thing too to remember is we're taking a look at this question by question. But if this ties hand in hand with your response for A, then you're good. Because remember the rubric, Part A, you establish Part A, and then Part B, you have to tie in to what you wrote about Part A, and Part B, and then Part C could be a combination of all. So as long as it ties in, then you should be fine. All right, Billy's next one, second to last.
All right, the divisions with the House and the Senate will make the passing of said bill very difficult. as throughout history, the House and the Senate are party swapped, meaning one party has control of one part of Congress. I'm getting what you mean. I think you're doing a good job of possibly showing the relation of how party divisions is affecting Congress in general, but I don't know if you quite get to the how it's going to affect this particular scenario. So maybe just a little bit more as far as explaining. But I see where it could go, and it would be close. I think it's about probably 50-50 on this one for me. I'm getting the point. Bogna?
Yeah, so the divisions within the House or Senate will make the passing of the bill very difficult. As throughout history, the House and Senate, meaning one party has control. Okay, yeah, I think this part is good. I think you have to be a little more clear on this one. It's not a bad response, but again, you just want it so it's clear and concise and there's no argument against it, because there's literal human beings who actually take a look at these and actually determine whether or not it's a good response. I think for the sake of time, we won't read this one. We'll go to the next one. So part C, go ahead.
All right, part C. 1 point is earned for explaining why Alliance Defending Freedom might argue that their constitutional rights are threatened by the Johnson Amendment. So again, there are two kind of answers. And what's also important that they kind of told us that I didn't think was anything big, but it actually does make sense now. The readers are actually given these rubrics. So if you can get anywhere close to the two answers that they actually give, that they're most likely going to give you a point. So are these the only correct answers? No, like we've kind of noticed through A and B, but these are the answers that they kind of think are the most obvious ones. So this one says the Alliance Defending Freedom and other religious groups might argue that their First Amendment rights are being violated. And then the other answer is the Alliance Defending Freedom and other religious groups might argue that their freedom of speech or religion is being violated. So they're kind of looking for using that First Amendment as your option to answer.
Perfect. So I'm just going to quickly go over these responses and then we'll continue. Okay, so the Alliance Defending Freedom can argue that by restricting endorsement as an organization, their constitutional rights to free speech and right to protest are being suppressed by the federal government. Good. Point. The Alliance Defending Freedom may say that the constitutional rights such as freedom of speech are being threatened since First Amendments protect you from freedom of religion, assembly, petition, press, and speech. This was what I knew was going to happen. You don't have to write this part. Or since the First Amendment protects you from freedom of speech. You can just put the Alliance Defending Freedom might say the constitutional rights such as the right to freedom of speech are being threatened since the First Amendment protects you from freedom of speech. You don't have to list all the parts. But, you know, sometimes this is what AP readers call a spare tire. You just show what what you know. It doesn't hurt, but again, short, sweet, to the point. You would get the point for this. And then, Billy, you want to read the last three?
Yeah. An argument that can be used in an argument that the organization's freedom of speech is being stripped away on them, since the specific part of the law is that the organizations cannot speak for or against candidates that can be presented as a push against the people's First Amendment rights. Yeah, I think that's a point. Would be good for me. The second one, the First Amendment is the right for freedom of religion, assembly, press, and speech. Obviously, the Alliance of Defending Freedoms see that the religious organizations are being oppressed by said tax law, since religious leaders may not speak out on politics or they may face repercussions for breaking the law. For that, I think it's a point, but again, I think that's part of like, okay, you're spare tiring it with the whole First Amendment, but you don't actually answer which of those rights is being restricted. So that's the only thing that I would add on, but I'd still give you the point for that one. And the last one is the Alliance Defending Freedom might argue that their constitutional rights are threatened by the Johnson Amendment because technically supporting a political leader or candidate isn't a crime and it doesn't present any danger or major problems. So by not allowing political organization members to speak out and support who they want without facing backlash, they are limiting the freedom of speech. Good, yeah, point.
All right, perfect. Again, only feedback is if you can make it concise, it'll be in your benefit because you only have 15 minutes. Because we don't want you having a good answer for A and then not having time to answer C, right?
Yeah, the best thing is just to get all the answers in.
Perfect. So let's recap. So you get 3 points for question 2, and it's testing your ability to see if you have the skills to incorporate into the scenario that's presented, which is this scenario right over here. And somehow that response got removed. But the scenario that was presented earlier today. So that's practice question number 2. That's question 2 for your AP exam in a nutshell. You have 15 minutes. Does anyone have any thoughts before we move on quickly to the next thing in our agenda? You can unmute and
Or questions.
or questions. Okay, so we're gonna move on. Okay, and I need you all to go to Google Classroom and to open up the Unit 1 review packet. Unit 1 review packet. So I know Billington posted his. We're gonna go over a couple of them, not all of them, but we want to see if you're on the right track here, and then we'll call it a day. So for me, go to classwork and then go to Unit 1 through 3 review packets right down here. And then click on Unit 1 review. So take a look at that. And I just want to emphasize these review packets are in your favor because, again, you're only tested on the 3 units, and the big points for each unit are in these packets. And hey, it's open notes. So if there's something you forgot, then you can always reference back to these packets. So we will go over every single question at the very last AP review session that we're going to have, which is the night before the actual test. We'll go through every single question so you can fill it out. But today we're just going to go over a couple of them. So we'll give you about 2 minutes to pull this up, and we'll go from there. Okay, so take a look. Alrighty, so the way at the beginning of the school year, which was like around August, September, we took a look at Foundations of American Democracy, which is essentially what laid the foundation of where we're at today. What happened at the beginning that got us to where we were today. And so this first part here, the first 9 questions here are essentially asking for her definitions for these key terms, such as limited government, social contract, natural rights. So Billington and I will just choose what we feel are important to go over. We're not going to go over all of them, but we're going to go over at least 2 from each section, 2 or 3, and we'll go from there. So Billington, you want to start off?
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. I'm going to avoid the define ones because I think those are just simplistic definition-wise that we've gone over, so those will be easy. So we'll go over the John Locke. What three rights must government protect? So that one is referencing, if you kind of remember the different, I believe you guys talked about John Locke in U.S. history, and you actually do learn about him in world history as well. He's mentioned a couple times, but he's talking about the life, liberty, and property. So those are the three rights that he actually mentions, and I guess you can kind of go over number 5 as well. That eventually was changed in the Declaration of Independence from property into pursuit of happiness. So for life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. But for John Locke's scenario, what natural rights are life, liberty, and property.
Exactly, and it just ties back into number 3 with natural rights. These are rights that can't be taken away. So what are those rights? Life, liberty, and property. Then all of a sudden, John Locke, remember, was an English philosopher that influenced how we formed our country. And so Thomas Jefferson, John Locke wasn't around at the time that Thomas Jefferson was like, oh wow, this is actually really good to incorporate to our new government. However, I'm going to change the last part, pursuit of happiness. Nobody really knows why, but it just goes hand in hand with what John Locke said, one of the philosophers that influenced how we have our country. Good. And then the one I'll go over is popular sovereignty. Popular sovereignty. This word, if you break it down, sovereignty just simply means people, right? People. And popular means power. Or I'm sorry, no, sovereignty means power. Popular means people. So when you take a look at it and break it down, it's people power, ruled by the people. And so that's what popular sovereignty is. And then I think you'll go over republicanism. It's not specifically talking about the Republican Party. It's talking about the concept of republicanism. And this is where we go into the debate of whether this country is truly a democracy or a republic. The most basic definition for republic is you have people that are representing you on behalf, or you have people that are representing you so that those people that you've nominated and elected can do everything in government, such as in Congress, write bills and whatnot, for you. They represent you, because I, as a constituent, can't just go to the floor of Congress and say, I want to go ahead and write this bill. That would be probably a democracy. Whereas republic, it's you have that filter, you have that representative who represents the views of their constituents. Alrighty, Billington 1.2. Let's take a look.
Right. These are good ones. So this one, I think, section was the one that popped up last year with pluralists and elite democracies, the different kinds of democracies. So I'll do number 11 on there, which goes over the pluralist democracy, which is the idea that no one group dominates politics and organized groups compete with each other to influence policy. So basically, there is no one dominant group. So meaning that even if you have money or property or rich or poor, it does not matter. Your kind of ideas or votes mean the same. It also applies to like organized groups, things like interest groups or anything like that. Everyone is competing to influence policy. It's not just based on one group and they get to choose whatever they want into making policy. So the different kind of examples, the one that I always think of is like the NRA and how much influence they do have on policies versus the other different kinds of gun control groups. So we all know what the NRA is. Do we even know of any gun control groups actually out there is kind of the question. Also, another big argument could be the people like PETA or the environmental interest groups versus the actual big business groups like oil companies or anything like that. So those are examples of pluralist democracy, that competition to influence policy.
Yeah, so again, these three key terms are important because when the Founding Fathers were like, what type of democracy should we follow? We somewhat follow all three of these. So Billington explained pluralist democracy with interest groups and groups in general competing, right? And that is essentially what Federalist 10 is about. And then elite democracy is giving a small number of people power. So essentially with your representatives in Congress, hey, that's an example of elite democracy. again, when you think of the word elite, it's like who are the elite people in your lives? Who are people who consider themselves elite? It's those hoity. It's the joke I always make. It's those hoity-toity people who are like, I went to Harvard. That's an elitist right there. Just because you went to school doesn't make you a better person, or does it? I don't know. 10, define participatory democracy. Again, this is like as close to a true democracy as possible, where everybody has power. And would that be a good thing? Right? Take a look at Billington and I were having a conversation about these protests going on, and it's like, whoa, wow. What if we were truly a participatory democracy and only a participatory democracy? How would this country survive, or would it survive? So, anything you want to add to that, Billy's?
All that we're kind of a mixture between all three of them. There are aspects of our government that kind of mixed all of them together. So there are aspects from each one of these kinds of democracy that we see in our form of democracy. So we're not specific to one.
Perfect. And we're going to continue through 130. So we're going to skip 1.3, go over 1.4. We're skipping 1.3 because those are your documents. So you should have some sort of idea of what that looks like. But again, we're going over every single question during our cram session the night before the exam. So let's skip on down to 1.4. This ties back to U.S. history. This ties back to why we have the Constitution. What were some of the challenges of the Articles of Confederation? Okay. And so a confederation, number 17, it's asking you to define it. It's simply where you have 13 states and they're all united together, but each of those states are just as powerful when you compare each state individually. They have the power, they retain the power, because remember, we declared independence from Great Britain because we didn't want a powerful government. We want states to have power. And so confederation, I'm reading it as defined right over here, a type of government where power is concentrated in political subunits. Those subunits would be the states, leaving very little power to the national and central government. We had the Articles of Confederation as a direct result of declaring independence from Great Britain. We did not want to repeat history, as the idiom goes. And so that's number 17 for me.
Okay, and then let's do number 19. That's always a good one. So 19 says, what did the American government look like under the Articles of the Confederation? You can be specific. Basically, this whole idea of what the Articles of Confederation was about was this idea they wanted to avoid a monarchy as much as possible, meaning that they obviously did not want a king or a queen to kind of keep that makes decisions. They wanted to make decisions themselves. So that's partially why the states got so powerful. But one of the ways that the government looked was that it was very weak. Okay, it was there, but it didn't have any power, and that caused a lot of problems for themselves that they didn't kind of see coming. They couldn't raise taxes, so the government really couldn't do anything because, again, you need money to do a lot of the things that the government does. So they couldn't raise taxes because the states would just deny them. They also had no say on the national level. Like, the states would decide what they want to do, and that was a state. That's what the state wanted. And there are no decisions that were made by the federal government or the national government really had power over the states, which is still true in some scenarios, but most of the time, a lot of the stuff comes from the federal government and then trickles down into the state level, as well as we see with the coronavirus as well. We see that a lot with them, and governments and governors and mayors and the president, they're all doing different things.
Boom, federalism.
Yeah, the federalism aspect of the Articles of Federation was severely missing at that point.
Perfect. And so now we're going to go over to ratification of the U.S. Constitution. I know we're going relatively fast, but this is just giving you a preview of what it will look like during the late night cram session, which is always my favorite thing. It's like essentially government in like a couple of hours. So I'm going to go over the Great Compromise. So what is this Great Compromise, right? And so you had the Virginia plan and the New Jersey plan. And essentially what had happened was, how are people going to be represented is what the founding fathers were asking. How are people going to be represented? We're not going to have a participatory democracy with this aspect. We're going to have like an elitist democracy where people are being represented. It's essentially illustrating republics. And so the Virginia plan essentially asked that, hey, the more people living in a state, the more representatives you should have. Whereas the New Jersey plan was, it should be equal. It should be equal. And this is how I taught my classes. Virginia plan, take a look at the eyes. The more eyes you have, Virginia plan, Virginia, the more I's you have, the more representatives you should have. But New Jersey plan, look at the E's, New Jersey, EE, they wanted equal representation. So the Virginia plan, Virginia was a large state at the time, New Jersey plan, small state at the time. So the small state was like, no, no, no. Just because they have more people living in that state doesn't mean they should have more power. But then Virginia said, oh, no, no, no. We have more people. We should have more representatives. And so what was the big thing that happened? But what ended up happening? We had the Great Compromise, also known as the Connecticut Compromise. You connected the two, Virginia and New Jersey, and you have the Great Compromise. And now we have a bicameral legislature, meaning we have a House and a Senate. House is based on population, proportional, and the Senate is equal representation. That is what I had to go over. Billington, go ahead.
I'll go over 24. It's one of my favorite compromises because it almost makes no sense as to how they came up. But the 3/5 compromise is basically the idea of how they were going to count states' populations based on slavery. So again, at that time during the U.S. Constitution, slaves had like no rights. Essentially, they were just slaves. That's all they were. But because of the idea of representation as being based on population, the South especially really wanted to make sure that they were getting as much representation as possible. So they had to kind of come up with this compromise as a country to count them, but also not really count them. And what made them come up with the 3/5 aspect of it, just like kind of blows your mind. But it also gave up the idea of how much money that those particular states are going to have to get based on taxes. So like federal money, the more people you have, you get the more representation, but you also get more federal money that was coming out of that taxes. So it's 3/5 compromise is super important based on the time period, but it also shows you kind of the different thought processes between the North and the South leading up to the Civil War.
Perfect. Yeah, and the 3/5 compromise, even though it's still in the Constitution, it's redacted because the change amendment, right? Amendment means change. 13th, 14th, 15th amended that specific clause with the 3/5 compromise. All right, we're going to go through just 1.6, just a couple of things, 1.6, 1.7, then we'll call it a day. So I will go over separation of powers. There's a difference between separation of powers and checks and balances. This is the number one thing every student I've always come across gets confused about. Separation of powers, very simple. It's kind of like in both Billington and my room, at the very front of the class, you have legislative branch, executive branch, judicial branch. Done. That's it. Separation of power. Power is separated in those three separate branches, in those three separate articles. LEJ, lazy elephants jump, Article 1, 2, and 3. Right? That's separation of powers, period. There we go. Checks and balances, however, is showing what check each branch has against each other. So the president, let's say, has the power, or let's go to a more relevant example based on the FRQ we did. Congress could make a bill, they could write a bill, and they want the goal of passing it so that it's a law. But just because Congress's function is to pass laws, that doesn't mean everything they write will become a law. It has to go through a check and balance. So the check and balance here is Congress writes the bills, and then goes to the president's desk, and the president says, nope, I don't want it, veto, so now it's not law. But is that the end of it? No, that's not the end of it, because what Congress can do is they can overturn, am I using that phrase right? Overturn. They can overturn that veto by 2/3 of the vote. So again, constant checks and balances. The president can't just do whatever he wants. Congress can't do whatever they want. So that's what checks and balances is all about. Remember, separation of powers is separating the three powers, checks and balances, what check each branch has against each other. Want to add anything to that, Billies?
No, you stole mine. I was going to pick 29 and just explain. But the only thing I would add is this diagram there are diagrams all over the place, which we've given you, but also you hopefully you have throughout your notes as well. All the different kinds of checks and balances kind of show you that different separation of powers as well. But it also shows how they integrate with each other. So that is one big thing that I would think you would need to have up for the test, because it's going to pop up. It can't really like give you a better example of how to prepare for the test.
Perfect. And I think the last one we'll go over is federalism, and we'll tie it into what's going on in this country today. So federalism is the division of power, right? It's dope. Division of power. What does that mean, division of power? Does that mean separation of powers? No, it's that at the federal level, you have a form of government, you have the federal government, and at the state level, you have a form of government. So let's just take the state of Nevada. And so this shows there's not separation of powers. It kind of is, but it's the line where they work together, right? And then we'll talk about dual and cooperative federalism later on, but there's always a line. Where's the line between where the federal government can get involved in state issues and vice versa, right? And then you come with, it also comes with the supremacy clause. So the states can't tell what the federal government can do, but the federal government can tell what the states can do. Again, system of hierarchy, but federalism, division of power. So if the federal government says something, does it apply to the states? And if the states have something, does it apply to the federal government? For the most part, no. And it's a system of hierarchy. You have the federal government and you have the state governments. But it's not just those two. You have the federal government, state governments, and you also have counties. You also have cities. And then you have, special purpose districts like the Clark County School District, the fire district, etc. So it's all a huge pizza of how governments work together. So the example I want to give is like the mayor. The mayor is like, oh, I want to reopen Las Vegas. I want to reopen the Las Vegas Strip. I want to go on Anderson Cooper and say, yes, I'm the mayor. Yes, I want to reopen the casinos. I don't own a casino, but I want it to be reopened. Can the mayor do that? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because the governor already said, I am not reopening Las Vegas. I'm not reopening Nevada until medical experts can chime in. And the data shows that, we're flattening the curve. But Mayor Goodman saying, no, I want to reopen it tomorrow. So again, how does that system of federalism work, right? The mayor can say anything she wants. She can't reopen the Strip. It's the other example I'll give you is it's kind of like Mrs. Sparza. What if Mrs. Sparza really wants to reopen Valley High School? She can't do that. Why? Because the governor said no. Actually, let's break it down a little more. The superintendent of the school said no, and the state superintendent of Nevada said no because the governor said no. So it's a system, it's a hierarchy, and that's all I had to say about that. Wow, Billington is speechless because that was such an amazing explanation.
There, it was just pretty entertaining.
Go ahead. What are your thoughts?
For what? For what are we talking about?
Federalism.
I don't know. You got me distracted on the mayor stuff. But yeah, federalism. Obviously, that is one of the original foundational things. The idea that we have to define what federal versus state actually looks like is super important to the way our government works. If we don't have that idea, we don't have defined rules for these people that are working in government on the federal level, but also on the state level, nothing would ever get done. Nothing would ever get done. There's so many different ways that, as you can see with Bognat's rant about the mayor and the governor, everybody has different viewpoints on certain scenarios. So federalism is one of the main super important things that makes our government run as efficient as it could be.
And that's why, the Constitution had a higher chance of being this successful 200 years later, because the Articles had a huge emphasis on state power, and that's it, which left the national government weak. And then when this country was founded, now the national government has power, and now people are saying, oh, maybe the federal government has too much power now. This is exactly what we declared independence from Great Britain from, so should we change it? And that's where different perspectives come. That's where political ideologies come into place, and that is where you discover what ideology you'd like to follow. That is a good end to this video. So, Billy, do you want to wrap it up? You have any last words?
Yeah. So, not necessarily about the AP stuff, but just so you guys know that you're here. I don't know if Bognat's posted anything about it yet, but all teachers are now creating a list of people that have been checking in and haven't been checking in. So if you have not checked in with one of your teachers, make sure to email them, because you really want to make sure that you're getting marked as here, because now they're going to be sending people out to homes to kind of check to make sure you guys are all good, because you haven't been checking in. So I'm assuming all of you guys have checked in with all your teachers, which is great. But just so you guys know what's happening pretty soon is we're going to be sending our lists of kids that have not checked in. So if you know of anybody that is kind of like, oh, I don't got to do these attendance things, please tell them to check in with their teachers, because they're just going to get a knock on the door from either our attendance person or possibly even the school police just to check in on them. But it's a process that could be avoided. All they have to do is just mark themselves here or email one of their teachers.
Yeah, no, a good example, good example. I'm tired. A good point there because, yes, we do have to start submitting lists of students that haven't been corresponding. So that is why I keep bugging you all for my classes to mark the virtual lessons as done. Billington has something similar where you mark those videos or questions as done, because it's not just some silly thing we're making you do. We're checking attendance. That's how we're checking attendance, that you're actually like still alive and you're marking yourselves here, because we want to make sure that you're okay. So please spread the word. We do want some feedback. Billington and I spent like an hour and a half doing all this for you, and we want your feedback. What do you want changed? What do you want to see more of? What helped? What didn't help? Do you like Mr. Bognot ranting, or you not? So say one thing at the end of chat, just to sum up your feelings right now.
Yeah, because we can change it. It's not set in stone, because the cram session is going to be a long thing. So we have options. Like if you would prefer maybe like us to make, I guess it's not really helpful now, but like a Kahoot or anything along those lines, that would help you a little bit better.
Whoa, I didn't even think about that. We could do a virtual Kahoot.
Maybe in like maybe if we actually had the full AP exam, that would be make more sense. But maybe something that different that you would want to do, maybe than other just practicing, that we would be more than willing to kind of create something for you guys for the last year.
Yeah, so can you please, we just want to make sure that we're not on some other tab buried among your other tabs that you're probably on. Can you please just provide some feedback? Because we can change things up, and we're only doing this to help you. Okay. Wow. All right. Do we have to contact all our teachers? Yes, in some way, shape, or form. So I'm doing mine in the form of virtual lessons. So mark those as done. Your other teachers might have a Google form for you to sign in. But worst case scenario, just send them an email saying, hey, this is like Emily Garcia. I just want to check in. You are the best. Bye-bye. So Paula says, looking at College Board answers were helpful. Good. Cal, is that what your student goes by, Mr. Billington? Because you said that I mispronounced it.
No.
Oh, Kalki? K. All right, K. So K says, thank you for your time. Being able to do some example questions, huge help. Yes. Because remember, y'all, here's another rant. Just work hard now. Work hard now. Get those thousands of dollars saved. I mean, now it's kind of like, 2020 has gone to, but don't use that as an excuse. Just pass this exam. Please pass this exam. You got this, especially this new format. Billington, you have anything to add to that?
Nope.
Mr. Brown, I met you many times. Remember, you and Mr. Zakis watched our back. Oh, hello. Oh, yeah, I remember. Okay. Marcos, I want to thank you for joining, even though you're not an AP. Hopefully you learned a thing or two. And let's just do a roll call. Tom, do you have anything to say? Emily talked. Alexis, wow. Only a couple of us. All good? Okay, y'all. So I'm going to stop the recording right now. So everyone say bye. Billington, say bye.
Bye. Lovely. Yeah, see you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Ah!
Bye, guys.
Pass the exam.
Bye.